Well, hello once again, and welcome to this week's edition of Professional Insights brought to you by the National Referral Network and hosted by two guys named Mike, who just happen to also have the same last name. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
And how are things out in Utah?
Well, I got to tell you, I was prepping this last night. My wife's like, "Hey, how come your name doesn't have your last name?" And I'm like, "I don't want to confuse people."
Yeah, right. They think they're seeing double as it is, I think. Well, welcome to you, and we're going to introduce our guest in just a minute. But before I do that, the purpose of this presentation is to share professional wisdom, expertise, and you guessed it, insights, so that professionals, individuals, whomever can benefit from whatever is shared. I got a little tongue tied there, but it just doesn't matter because we're here with Stuart Guthrie. Stuart is a business broker. He's a business coach. He's a business guru. He's a business whatever you want him to be. Hello, Stuart, and thanks for showing up here this morning and giving us some of what you have to offer. I want to launch right into the questions and ask you, among your kind, what makes you and your firm unique?
Um, Thanks to both of you for inviting me on. I'm really looking forward to this. Um, what makes us unique? I think probably the biggest thing is our background. I am a business partner with my wife, who is also a business broker and a CEPA and a certified exit planning associate. I can't remember. I never remember what the A stands for anyway, but
Advisor.
she's
It's
an advisor.
advisor.
That's it. Yeah. And a value builders coach, and I've taken some of that training myself. But probably the biggest thing is the fact that we've owned businesses. We've this is the third business we've owned together. We've sold two. We bought this brokerage in January 21, and so um, we've been around a little bit in terms of our background, and I think that, and I have kind of a varied background in a variety of different sales roles, industrial technology, things like that. So I think that we're pretty good at getting in and understanding people's businesses. Well, and I think that's a big part of selling the business, is actually kind of getting it in terms of that business.
Okay. And
So,
I have to
Stuart,
ask before I hand it over to Mike, do you and your wife, since you're in business together, do you have the marriage counselor on speed dial just in case?
But it's shocking the number of times that people will ask that. I mean, and it's funny. We worked together for so long.
Hmm.
I can't imagine. You guys will meet her at some point. I overmarried. So I truly, with the exception of spiders, she's the most brilliant and rational woman I ever met in my life. So
I love that endorsement, Mike.
well, yeah, we look forward to meeting you guys. Stuart, with you and your wife being on both sides, right? You guys were a business owner. You guys have sold. Now you're working with business owners. What are some of the top mistakes that you see when people start to prepare or run a business?
the biggest mistake I see is they don't prepare. In other words, they come to they haven't talked to anyone, and it's like, well, I'm going to call a business broker. We get a phone call, which I'm delighted to take, but we look at the fact that most people's businesses are tax optimized. In other words, they run every expense they can through their business, which, by the way, I'm in full agreement with. I think that they can spend their money better than the government can, given a choice. So, but they optimize it so that they minimize their tax burden. Unfortunately, that suppresses the earnings. So now we've got to go through our recasting exercise. Um, and of course, a lot of folks are technicians that start businesses and own businesses. And so the compliance part is where it's weak. In other words, good books and records, all those sorts of things go toward increasing and improving the value of the business. There's a lot of things we could talk about there.
Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about businesses that are, where the owner is looking down the road at an exit or a sale or something like that. And you made the point earlier that businesses really should be ready to be sold all the time. And there are a number of benefits for taking that position. Walk us through why that's a good idea.
Well, here's the thing. We need to remember that when someone's buying, when they're going to buy a business, if it's an closely held owner operated business, the fact is that the person who's selling it is most often kind of either the key salesperson or the key technician, something like that. In other words, they know the most about the business. But what they forget is that if you become a business owner, if you use, for instance, use Kiyosaki's formulation about a business ownership, the way you can tell if you're a business owner versus being self-employed is if you leave your business for a month and you come back and it's bigger than it was when you left, you're a business owner now, right?
Okay, now let me break in there. How many businesses can actually do that?
Very few, honestly. And that doesn't mean that if they can't do that, they're not saleable. But I guarantee you, the more so that they can, or the closer they get to that, the much more saleable they are. So
Wow.
so you get someone who is building a business like that. Remember that people. Let me give an example. I live in Reno, and so Reno business owners frequently have this vision of the rich California. They sell their house for $2 million and they come over and pay cash for my business and take it over, which all that's true. There's a lot of equity built up in homes in California. That said, when someone is, someone who works in a job and they've got, 4 weeks of paid vacation, and they have benefits and all that stuff, and you're going to come over and buy a business where you're making $100,000 a year, which is not a bad wage, but the fact is that you're working 40 to 60 hours a week to make that money. Is that really attractive to someone who's worked a regular 8 to 5 job? I mean, regardless, you can get into the emotional part of the benefits of owning a business and stuff like that, but you've got to really offer some benefit. And of course, if you build a business that can run more on its own, now you've widened the group of people, your potential buyers. In other words, as opposed to having someone who can do exactly what you do. If you're a plumber and you want to sell a plumbing business, you can only sell to a plumber. If you have a business that runs itself, now you've opened up the realm of possibilities of people who just want to buy as an investment. And so the more clients who can buy your business, the more likely you're going to be able to get a better price.
So Stuart, how does there's a lot, right? There's the psychology behind it. There's the emotional attachment. If there's that level of consciousness that you don't even know what questions to ask, how does somebody even, as a business owner, how does somebody even start asking better questions, and where do they find those questions to ask someone like you, or to start that process to get it to that separation that you were talking about?
Well, this is strangely enough, it sounds like I'm promoting myself. But the but the fact is, I welcome those calls. Our dream scenario is that we can talk to someone 3 to 5 years before they're ready to go. Because if you want to sell your business today, we have to value it, and it's going to sell for what it sells for, right? But if you can talk to us 3 to 5 years before you get that, there's time to affect change. Look, you need to. Hey, here's a fundamental. You need to start paying some taxes. In other words, you need to start showing some profit on your tax return versus optimizing it for to minimize your tax burden. Your accounting system is not, or you're not using your accounting. For instance, everyone has QuickBooks, but do they really use it to its full extent? Probably not. Does that mean you need to learn how to use it yourself? Maybe parts of it, but maybe you want to engage a bookkeeper or a CPA that can help you set up your business so that when you're ready to go, someone says, look, in due diligence, someone says, I need a report for this, that, or the other thing. You can pull it like that.
Quickly.
That all looks good.
Yep.
I read I think I saw a book title called The McDonaldization of Business or something like that. And are you saying that, a business, in order to run by itself or independent of the owner, kind of needs to go down the road, kind of needs to look at almost approaching how they do things like running a McDonald's? Oh,
precisely. So I've not read that book, but there's another one out there that I promote to a lot of people. It's called The E-Myth.
Great book.
And the idea is to build your business as if it were a franchise. That means systems, processes, document the books, document processes, automate good processes. I have a guy tell me one time that, if you automate a bad process, you tank your business that much faster, right? So you want to make sure your businesses your processes are in good shape and doing what you need to do, but then get them all set up. And then at that point, um, your business is easier to run. And you're going to enjoy running it better. And maybe you'll fall back in love with your business and you don't want to sell it anymore.
Mm.
Or maybe, uh, yeah, here's a great example. Catherine and I owned a property management company. I can't tell you how I happened to be out of that business. But at our peak, we managed just under 600 properties. And we thought, we're going to turn this business over to our kids. This is going to be a family business. It's going to be a legacy. And our kids looked at us and says, no way in hell I'm going to do that. It was a hard business, and we had some systems in place. That's where we started reading the things like the E-Myth and things like that. But basically we were so engaged in that business. I don't know, there's the old saying, it's hard to remember your job is to drain the swamp when you're up to your ass in alligators. And that was, that was our situation. So, and that's going to be a challenge for any business owner, or most business owners, is finding that time to work on their business versus in their business. But yes, you build a business that can run by itself without your input. My gosh, that's valuable.
And this is one of the points that we make with with National Referral Network membership, that membership really does allow you to plug into the expertise of other professionals, so that you can get this kind of mentorship, plug into these resources. It's against the rising tide raising all ships. If you want to learn how to get your business to the point where it can run by itself without you, then using these resources will help you get there. Mike, I know you may have a question or a comment about that as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, Stuart, there's a lot that's changing. And so, I mean, real quick, with the economy, with things moving forward the way they are, like, what are some of the pitfalls that moving forward that somebody might have to, I mean, it's a hard question, right? Because we don't know what's happening in the future, but something that they're going to have to overcome in the near future to get some of these things done.
Well, best illustrated by an example. I have I'm working on a project right now with someone who wants to buy a business. The buyer seller came together. We have a standard contract. The attorney chose not to pursue using our contract and wanted to write an LOI. And I'm not going to be critical of the attorney for wanting to protect their client's interests. However, in this case, it's taken 60 days, and there's been 2 rate increases since then. So that SBA loan that was going to cost them 6.5% is going to cost them 8.5% now on just under $1 million loan. That is significant, right? So I would say that it comes back to the idea of being prepared, right? In other words, if you are ready to go and you don't have to whip your books into shape, and you don't have to make adjustments on the fly while you're valuing your business, you're more likely to be able to take advantage of an environment right now, because, like I said, with rates going up, I think now that the election's over, I think there's a certain amount of uncertainty that has been kind of squeezed out of what's happening out there, and so people are maybe willing to make a move right now. But the fact is, unless you're ready, you don't know what's going to happen. And then again, when I would liken it to changing a tire changing a tire in a car that's rolling down the road at 50 miles an hour, right? If the business is ready, or fundamentally ready, much easier to take advantage of an opportunity.
So Stuart, it sounds like what you're saying is that one of the best decisions a business owner can make is prepare your business to be sold right away, whether or not you're going to sell it. It's going to run better if you do that, whether or not you sell it. In other words, it's sort of like saying, get it in shape. It sounds like you're saying systematize it like a McDonald's so it can run by itself, because it'll be at its peak valuation if you do that. So in closing here today, how do you see your membership in the National Referral Network helping you do what you do?
It's the resources. In other words, I have to tell people all the time, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a CPA, but I can look at these businesses and say, you need help. And that doesn't mean they're bad businesses. It means that we need to get them in shape, and the ability to reach into a cloud of professionals like NRN, right? In other words, and and all across the country, right? So in other words, I have someone who's in Southern California. They're considering buying their business. They contact me. They need an accountant. You'd be shocked the number of people who don't talk to an accountant, or they need a coach. In other words, they need someone to help them identify their processes and optimize their processes. Ideally, they're talking to me 3 years, 5 years before they're ready to go, and we can reach into this group of people. Or frankly, what's the old saying about the million drill bits sold in the country last year, and not a single person wanted a drill bit. They wanted a hole. Right? And the fact is that, you guys, the two guys I'm talking to are, your financial advisors, because the people, with exceptions, the vast majority of people who want, who are doing their business are doing so for financial security, right? How do you achieve that financial security? And it almost doesn't matter what the business is, but they should be talking to guys like you and say, look, I want to, I want to retire when I'm X age. And of course, what's your question? Your question's going to be, okay, what kind of income do you need in order to achieve that goal? Well, and then, 70, 80% of their retirement value, or the value of their retirement, is tied up in their business. Wouldn't it be nice to know how much their business is worth? And when they find out that they fall short of that, that's my job, is to sometimes tell them their baby's ugly. And then hopefully you have 3 to 5 years. People are so emotional about their business, right? And it's like, well, your business that my financial advisor said I need about $1.5 million. Your business is worth 900,000. Mm-hmm. All right. So hopefully they're not in a hot panic to get out of their business at that point. And so now we've got some time to say, well, Mike and Mike say that I need $1.5 million. All right. Well, how do we get to $1.5 million valuation in the next 3 to 5 years when you want to retire?
Nice.
But again, that has to do with understanding, a map is useless unless you know where you are to begin with. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's again, NRN is just that whole network of people out there that we can pull those professionals in, because I'm not qualified to do what you do. I'm not qualified to be an accountant or an attorney.
I love it.
Well, we thank you, Mike. We're silent now.
I think that's it. Here, I'll just go ahead. There, I'll go ahead and do the plug. And Stuart, that's amazing.
Mike, why don't you close the show here as we wrap up?
Yeah, Stuart, I want to thank you. You've been one of those members that have always been open to creating more value for others. I think this is the second or third interview that you've done in different capacities. So thank you so much for the engagement and your willingness to participate and create that value. If you want to know any more about the National Referral Network, there'll be links to not only the National Referral Network, but also Stuart. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And other than that, Mike, final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thanks to everyone. We'll see everyone next Tuesday, same time, same station.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen.